a minute and we'll start our webinar in a minute. Thank you so much for joining in. Yeah, good morning again. This is Sean, your host for today's webinar on SAP Hybris Architecture and its building blocks. I see while others joining in, we'll just go ahead with the introduction of the topic and things like that. Today's topic is on Hybris Architecture. This is our fourth webinar in this Hybris series, and our presenter is Ravi Pal, who is our practice lead for e-commerce and digital marketing practice at ProSoft. Ravi?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, one quick thing, Ravi. All attendees, if you have any questions, please reserve them towards your end, or you can always enter them in the questions tab, and we'll be happy to answer them in the question and answer session during the last 10-15 minutes. Go ahead, Ravi. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. So as Sean was talking about that, today's our focus is going to be on the composition of Hybris architecture. So welcome to the fourth webinar on SAP Hybris series. And as you know, we see that that for any business application, an in-depth understanding of the platform on which the business foundation is being laid out is extremely important. So most importantly, today's business, especially commerce and marketing, which experienced a dramatic change with the change in the customer choices. So it is quite trivial to establish that we understand the architecture well, and we also understand that how it should be applied to our business applications. So our today's session will not be just talking about all the tools and technologies, what this Hybris is about. We will start with that what a business problem is. We will understand in the context of commerce and digital marketing what an organization looks for, whenever they chooses any platform, just like SAP Hybris or any other commerce platform. And in the context of the business use and the business use cases, we will see that architecturally SAP Hybris building blocks, how does it construct the view to make an application or a business process work for any organization. So having said that, so let's get started. So today we are going to learn about the architecture on two perspectives. We will talk about that what Hybris is, and then followed by that how it can be used or applied to our business applications. Briefly about me, my name is Ravinder Singh Pal, aka Ravi or R Pal. With over 20 years experience, I lead to design and deliver a business to consumer and business to business application for retail, CPG, hospitality, healthcare, and entertainment, other travel sites. I am running a Hybris user group for Midwest. Our next meet is coming up on August 6, 2015. You can find more details on the meetup.com Chicago-SAP-Hybris-user group. If you have any question after this webinar, you can reach out to me at my email address, rpal@prosoftgroup.com, or my number is listed here as well. So let's move on. So we are going to see first a Hybris, what it is in the context of a business application, business process. Then only we are going to see that how its tools and technologies has been put together. So simply stating about Hybris, it is a technology platform to build a commerce and marketing application. Meant for business to consumer and business to business. So as we talk about that it is commerce and marketing, what does it contain? What does it mean that digital commerce and marketing? So quickly we will see that to understand getting more into the aspect of the architecture platform and building blocks, let's take a brief perspective on the business before we jump into nitty-gritty details of the architecture. So this is a snapshot of for any business to consumer and business to business commerce domain model. It has been classified into big chunks of all the use cases within that, what it actually have it, just like from online marketing to online shopping to product management to customer management, all the channel integrations, from compliance perspective, all the compliance management issues, and backend, anything with the supply chain integration, order management to transportation management, payment systems, inventory systems. So this view is extremely important for us to ensure that when we start looking into our architectural and its building blocks, at the end of any effort, we want to see that how those architectural patterns are being applied to solve my problem, whether this problem is for a online shopping user experience. So as we know that most of our e-commerce initiative today are geared for a omni-channel, which used to be called a multi-channel, where every e-commerce retailer, they want that the experience across all the channels of the consumer choices, whether it is a phone or it is their web browser or it is a kiosk or on their call center, there has to be a consistent experience so that consumer should see that the value of any of the information about products, about the reviews, and so that the value eventually, when tailored into when the customer is going to order a thing online or through the mobile devices, So overall, this is critical for us and for any organization, besides the fact that we are interested to know what it is, but at the same time, it is also very important that we start looking at how it solves a business problem. The next slide is on the marketing domain, and it is all about how the content should be captured, how the content should be presented, how the campaigns should be run, how we should be able to have our product information to be relayed across different medias where the consumer touch points are there. So these two slides give us the perspective like that, okay, we are going to adopt or we are going to write an application, then we have to pick from commerce and marketing domain that these are the things we need to solve. So this is so these two slides, even though there is a lot of materials, on this, sometimes I have taken speaking on each slide more than an hour. But this is a good reference from your perspective when you're trying to understand an architecture that we should eventually be able to plug in any of those tools and technology to solve one of these problems. Okay, so having said that, let's move on and try to understand the alignment between these business components with the Hybris building blocks. So what I just spoke about, I showed a very detailed view on that what is the commerce domain model is, and I also gave a detailed view about the marketing domain model is. So this one is a simplified view just to show that how we should start looking into that what this architecture is. That's what we are here for, as well as how we are going to apply this to build our application. So across any organization, these are some of the business portfolios, or we can say units, which gives an organization its business value chain, whether it's a product conceptualization, product initiation, product building, to building a supplier network, to have all the marketing, sales across all the channels, shopping, payment, settlement, order and fulfillment, so all these kind of things. So now let's see how the Hybris is coming to the play here. And we must have heard anyone who is working on Hybris extensions, and Hybris extensions pretty much is a module. So in this today's talk, I prefer to call it a module rather than extension, because a extension does something which I always feel a add-on to that, whereas a module is always a autonomous piece which is doing a particular job. So in this case, when we look at the basic building block of Hybris, that's either from terminology perspective you call it a module or extension, it solves a business problem. So in this case, what I'm showing you here is that within a supplier, whether it's a contract or whether it's a supplier set up within our commerce platform, so a Hybris module is solving that problem. And when we start looking at it, we see that there are many such modules within Hybris, which we bring them together to solve a business problem. So that's in according to whether we have a business a process or we have a business goal. So here, take a look at a payment module, promotion module, cockpits, product module, order management system. So these are all the modules. So Hybris, when we start seeing Hybris, we have to keep one thing in mind, that it is always a look at from the perspective of a module and extension. That's what it's all about. That's what it aligns with your business process / your business function. So when we start looking at that, then it becomes much easier for us also to classify our projects. We can iterate it the right way, we can execute it the right way. So that's why it's very critical that across the board, anyone who is interested for the Hybris, they actually start seeing that, I see any Hybris module, as well as any customization I do, I should be concentrating and I should be keeping in mind that it's all about I'm building a module. So now let's go deeper into that what this is about. So a module is very similar, to an extension, and as any of the Hybris enthusiasts, those who are there on the call today, there are ways when we create a module, we go on a tool, which are ant-based tools, So from a command prompt, when we say add module gen, so that create a module based on all the choices we make. And the similar way, when we are having a extension gen, ext gen. So pretty much they both are doing a generation of the template for a module for our framework or a baseline on which we can add on or we can customize it. So when all of these modules, they are combined together, they basically make an accelerator or an application or a service. And so accelerator, there are different accelerator for different verticals. There is a telecommunication vertical, there is a B2B accelerator, there is a B2C accelerator. So what is happening underneath is that those modules, they have been customized to a specific business vertical, and whatever their needs are, just like telecommunication need versus a retail need versus a healthcare, their product composition, the way the product are made, the product modeling is different, the way they are shown to the customer, they are different. It's the similar way, if we are into a life sciences industry, they show the product in a very different way. So it's all about that how we build those accelerator, or we make application. Let's say we want to create an application for our store attendants, where somebody walks in and store wants to see, whether this is our loyal, customer, and immediately, as they walk in, through, some devices, we should be able to see the customer, on our terminal. And so there are different technology, but I'm not going to get into that. Let's come back here. So when we see that, now let's start looking into a module, that what this module is, So we came from we learned that there is a business domain. Within the business domain, there is a business portfolio. Within that, there is a business use case, a module solve a use case. Now we are exploring, and we are looking into that within a module, what does it mean? So what I have seen is that these are the 5 logical construct of a module. That doesn't mean that all 5 of them have to create a module. To the minimum, there is a module which are very specific to a persistence tier. There are modules which are like persistence tier and logic tier. They are made together. So overall, you can, build a module. You can think of a module that is a combination of one or many of these different tiers. So that's the way these modules are constructed. So we will see more as we get into that what it is, because our today what we are going to learn today is that how these eventually all these tiers, what each tier is composed of, and what is the mechanism between those tiers to talk to each other to make a module working to solve a function. So let's move forward. So we just learned that there are essentially 5 tiers. We have access tier, we have presentation tier, we have a business, we have persistence, and then we have repository / any of the back office applications whom we want to connect. So the client is like there can be a browser client, there can be a mobile client, there can be a brick and mortar store, which is all nothing but a physical store. We can have a B2B, our business partner, who wants to connect with us, through its application or processes or anything they want to integrate with. And then, we have to have a call center or a store. Then we have within our commerce community or anyone for the business perspective, we have administrators. We also have developers, that how they are going to communicate with that. So the client layer is all about how these operators they interact with our Hybris platform. So they have access to what we call our presentation tier. When they access through this, access is made up of different tools within Hybris. So now here I am showing here that Spring MVC. So many of you must have learned during your Hybris exploration that Hybris makes use of Spring a lot, and that is true. So now when we start seeing the applicability of Spring within Hybris, as we start peeling the onion slowly, we learn that every different tiers within the Hybris architecture, they make use of Spring in a special way, like whatever the function of the Spring framework and as well as the function of any of the Spring provided tools, it applies to one specific task what the Hybris is interested in. So here we have for any web-based thing, there is a Spring MVC, this model view controller design pattern. Everyone, it's known for many years now. So the purpose is like, when the request comes, there is a handler here, and the controller. Every request is coming to controller, and then they eventually parse it and then call the backend services. So overall, that's what MVC does. And then form a view based on any response comes back from the business services. There are REST handlers. REST handlers are a layer built on top of any of the controllers. Those are the first touch point to process requests. So so the REST handlers are basically packaging and accepting a request which are made in a REST protocol. So that is where these REST handlers are coming to the picture. We can build mobile app. We can have if we are bringing an iPhone app versus Android app, we can call these RESTful services which are from our client side presentation. We can send a request to these handlers, and these handlers are going to convert those JSON or XML into the proper format before calling the business service. Cockpits internally, cockpits are built on top of ZK framework. So this is the who's so this is a kind of building rich applications for the interface perspective. They have their own framework, which is very similar to a scripting language. So overall, there are many widgets, which are available. So the task of that ZK framework, which is the cockpits used internally, is all about using their client and server technology to pass on the messages between those two components. So any of the cockpits, whether you make use of a product cockpit or call center, or you build your custom cockpit, this is pretty much we will be leveraging the Hybris out of the box coming with ZK technology which they're using. Any of the data management is all about HMC, where we see a Hybris management console or any other activity for import, export, impacts, all those kind of things, administrator or developer. This is our presentation layer. When we start looking at it, it is important that we do not just see from the perspective of that, okay, this is a web or this is, so we have to see collectively, what when we are building our application, how, to what a particular channel, we are sufficing to, so that we can pick create connectors to build those applications. Let's see what next comes. So a presentation layer, as I was talking about, access a business logic. So the business logic where the processing is happening. So there is a composition of services, there is a composite service, there is some facade is coming into play where one service is calling multiple microservices so that there are not multiple calls going on between a client and a server. So services is all about that. So that any request which is coming, so if I'm saying, okay, add a cart, add a item to the cart, when this request is coming. So this request goes to the presentation tier and then comes to the business tier. So business tier knows, okay, I have a service, cart service. So the function of the cart service is, okay, add an item to the cart, and then I have to give, what product I am adding to the cart. So this business service at the back end will make sure that any of the services which need to be called at a micro level, they are called. So here I have shown here that there one part is the business services, another is the system services, and then there are REST resources, which are plugging in to give our REST handler ability to service those calls which coming in the REST protocol. So system services are more, if you see from the perspective of what is caching, what is logging, how cluster is working, how events are working, how this is very system specific where we are ensuring that some of the low level system level tasks, how they are taken care of. And business is purely from the perspective of, okay, this is a product service, this is a catalog service, this is a category service, this is a cart service, this is my voucher service, this is my gift card service, so all about that. So there is a distinction. So when you must have seen, as we see, Hybris, when we see the different extension, there is a platform extension or a module, a platform, most of the services, which platform provides out of the box, they are system services, even though there is catalog product, they are also bundled in that. But this is what the distinction between these two things are like that. Then we have a logic sits on top of a persistence tier, and Hybris, provides, since later all those earlier versions, I started looking at Hybris version 4.2 or 4.3, and so I have seen their persistence model, which today you can equate to what JPA does. This was happening around 4 years back. Within the way they have modeled this whole persistence, within their persistence tiers. So now, as some of the new versions are coming, what you will see that there are other persistence engines being plugged into Hybris framework. So one part is that any applications which are already using older persistence engine, which is called core, and versus anything which is core plus persistence engines. They are like where there is no SQL. It's pure JDBC persistence engine, or a JPA compliance-based persistence engine. So these topics as such definitely takes much more discussion, as we start looking into when to use what and how to use it, but overall, some of these things, as I see moving forward, would be put off the shelf, and just like JPA is more of a standard where we just model everything from the entity perspective in a well-defined industrial standard XML, and from there the whole object model is created. And in the core, Hybris does it pretty much the same way, but it is more, proprietary within the Hybris group. So there are choices. So, but at the same time, what we need to learn that architecturally, these are the choices we have. So if we are more comfortable using JPA versus, NoSQL, if we are using MongoDB or any other database which is non-relational database, how we are going to adopt that. You must have also heard about SAP HANA, which is again adopting NoSQL. So the direction is like there should be choices on the platform side where the organization is looking for whether it is more comfortable to have their platform built on a relational model or they are more comfortable. There are always pros and cons, and there are, based on that, what best fits the business need, based on their adoption, so these choices are made. But in general, you can also use a mix of these persistence engine also within your application. If you are having a core and now you are building a custom module, and there is no, it's not that you have to stick to core's persistence. You can actually use core plus also to bundle that application into your deployment, even though they both will be there. So it's still going to work. So repository tier, we all know that it is a Hybris database, which has a lot of all the tables in one cohesive manner. So we talk about product PIM model, which is all about constraint in that. It has been linked to file storage, binary and indexing, any of the binary data stored on that. And then at the back end, we are connecting to either SAP or we are connecting with our business partner or third-party libraries. So overall, as we start to decompose and as we start looking into those 5 spheres, which I showed, like what is a access tier versus a presentation tier to a logic, persistence, and repository, this is a set of technologies which Hybris provides. And we now going to see, one by one, what does it mean to us, that we now know that, these are the things which are being put together to solve a problem and providing me a technology platform so that I can build my applications. But I just want to see what is there more into this one. So let's see from that perspective. So order, the way I have seen is, even when you start looking into a Hybris architecture or start adopting it and start using it, the order of adoption or order of just having your business requirement to break into that, I have seen the most to get the most out of it and have a very streamlined development, so the order is from bottoms up. So you can, when we are doing all the system, all the, business analysis, we go over from our goals and we say, okay, these are the capabilities we want to do. These are the business requirements. And for each business requirement, these are the KPIs, so that I can see whether I was able to achieve my end goal or not. So that's very critical. So, but when we have understood that we are building an extension or a module is made up of one or many of those 5 tiers, and those 5 tiers are this. So it's basically like advisable that you see that how this order is going to help you out. So let's go in this order, as you will see a lot of value in that part. So persistence is all about that there is a persistence engine, and persistence engine implementation is, there are two implementations. One is engine core, and as I already spoke about that, there is a engine core plus. Within a core plus, there is a a JPA, which is Hibernate based. You know how it is, and everyone knows about what Hibernate is. It's again another ORM engine. And JDBC, these are a core, based on a Spring JDBC framework, JDBC template, and all that. And NoSQL is all about how we can have a NoSQL database in that. So when we put all these things together, we know that the features are that we are trying to see that object and our information model mapping. We want to see transactional support. We want to see that how we can ensure that there are a proper compliance of security and access rights are being reserved on any of the information which is being stored within the context of our repository for the compliance reason, as well as to share to make sure that access rights are given in the right way, so that we can protect our valuable data. How everything should be cached, so that when I'm making a call, how the flexible search engine, it makes sure that if there is the same construct of the statement, why should I call the data again? If the data is not dirty, I should be pulling it from the cache because I already have it. So for the performance reasons. Same way the clustering. So the applications can use multiple persistence engines simultaneously, as I said, as well as when we migrate from one engine to another, since it's not just a runtime change, and so as we all understand that dependencies on the persistence engine underneath depends on libraries, and those libraries are different for each engine. So that's why when we do this, we have to rebuild our Hybris application. So that means we have to have another release, and then we have to deploy that release. Okay, let's persistence engine is done. So let's move on to our now logic tier. So logic is based on a Spring framework. So Spring, as we know that it provides a container running within the context of a JVM, and the way JVM independently can give you the control, as well as it controls all the objects created within that. A Spring container or anything, any beans managed by the Spring container are contained within the context of the Spring. So as I spoke earlier, that when we look at our core extension, core extension define what is a type, what is a model, internationalization, caching, eventing, user security, all those kind of things. So when I say that, as we know that this is dependent on a Spring framework. So all of these units are actually Spring beans within this logic tier. So when we see the extension for commerce, it's a product, it is a category, it's a price, location, account, cart, and many other functions which cannot be shown on this slide. So as we see that all of them are being exposed as a Spring bean. So and we know that how the Spring beans work. Spring framework, if we write any Java class, it's a pure POJO model, and Java class we can have it bind to a Spring framework either using an XML file where we define, okay, this is the name I want to give, a logical name, this is the class, Then I want to see that how the initialization should happen. Then I want to give, that it depends on these classes. So the origination of this Spring and the popularity of this Spring came from those dependency injection design patterns. In the object world, we know that everything depends on something else. So in earlier days, every time before this, I used to say, okay, to create object a new, and then once that object is created, so I will pass on that object to another one. And then when these dependency injection like Spring and some other came, just like, from Google side, there is a juice with J, not G, Juice. That's also another dependency injection implementation. So the purpose is, if suppose there is an object dependent on something, this framework does the job to initialize it before start realizing the realization of those objects within the context of another object which is dependent on that. So we have to keep in this mind that whenever we are start writing these applications, so this is critical that we have a good understanding on Spring. So the features are, it is a Spring container. Each extension module depends on Spring managed beans. We can customize it, and there are ways we can use, Spring proxies. We can use aspect-oriented programming. There are aliases, defined within the Spring, where when we see an alias, it says, okay, this is the name of the service, and underneath the implementation is the default product service, default part service. So if we change any of these, the customization, we can do this kind of thing. Core platform and commerce, and as well as there are many different extension modules are there, which has their own functionality which it provides. So let's move on. So now when we look at it, so we come back and see that this is now it starts making sense. That when we look at it, we now know that leaving, a client and our repository, we have a well construct of that. We have a persistence engine. We have sitting on top of it a logic, and then we have a presentation tier sitting on top of it, all about a REST and all that. So presentation tier, there are three things, based on whatever you're building. If you are building pure web-based, browser-based, that there is a Spring embassy. If you are developing purely from a mobile perspective, there are mobile SDK, for iOS as well as for Android. So then we use those SDK and then make use of all the REST handlers and all that to make that happen. And then for cockpit, we have a ZK framework, as I told you. And so this is what the three platforms has been put together. So we bring everything together, and we see that how those things, technologies and tools, they are sitting on top of each other. So overall, so takeaway is that when you start looking into these tiers uses many complex technologies, and the way they have been bundled together. There are also a lot of other technologies which are being used within that, but a majority of the dependencies, is based on these identified technologies. Okay, so from here, that actually completes our view of the Hybris architecture. We started with a business problem. We understood the domain. We understood a business value chain. We found that what is a module is, and we saw that a module solves a business problem, which is one functionality within a business portfolio. And eventually then we start that, module is composed of one or many of the tiers of access, presentation, logic, persistence, repository. And then we saw that how they are different technologies, they are being used to make that a function happen. Now, now let's talk about that. How can I use it? Because just knowing a technology, does not help, because at the end of the day, we want to make use of it. We want to enable our teams. We want to, make use of it. So let's now explore what does it involve, to make use of it. So as we understand that these are the technologies which are being used, so it is important to just see that picture again so that we know that what we did, so and to move it forward. And so this is the same domain, our business value chain. Just want to show it again before I jump onto how to use it. So business architecture view is very important. As we have the domain, and then we lay out that what a product is, product prototype, if we see in product management, product variant, we go in supplier, supplier management, contract, marketing, sales, settlement, so all those kind of things. And then underneath in the green, I have put together all the modules which comes from Hybris. So you will can easily spot out these modules, how they align with your business portfolio. This gives you from where you can see that to construct a business architecture. And then underneath, we know that there are all the platform technologies. It's not just that within an organization we are using. So I've been, developing applications and, assisting architecturally, advising many companies for a long time. So there is always a plethora of other technologies. There are CRM solutions, there are different ERPs, there are, at least customer data is on, a minimum around 3 or 4 different data sources, how to bring it together. There is a single view of a customer, then we have to see that how the product data is being constructed properly, how it's taken over here. So all of the underneath technologies are, have to be thought of constructing a business architecture view. That's important, before we start looking into how to use it. So that's critical. So as I was giving from the architecture perspective, we learned that this is architecture. Then I showed that persistence, logic, and this. The same way, I am here giving that, follow the same pattern. Document everything, business architecture, all those kind of things what you need to do, and then you go with the same. And this is the way you actually iterate. This is the way you do your project management. This is the way you actually ask your team, make your teams groups in the same way, so that they can do the unit testing, integration testing, all that in the same capacity. So let's now get into that. Oh, some transitioning is a little bit issue here, but anyway. So this is what I wanted to show. So there is a business requirement, there is a business process. Then when we, from the business architecture view, let's create a design view. So when we talk about the design view, we actually have to give enough thought to that. We adopt a proper UML, solution architecture view where we are modeling our entities, because persistence is all about the way we look at a business requirement, our requirements, our business process, our business view, from the perspective of that these are all the data I'm going to deal with. And data is nothing but data is all the entities when we structure them together, and that's what needs to be done. So make sure that when you do that, you, as a design, you have a class diagram for your persistence here, which defines this is my inheritance between these entities, this is my composition is, this is where aggregation is, so that I can actually properly create after that, items.xml. Everyone should, you must be dealing with it, because every module, comes with that there is a representation of a entity within the context of the persistence engine, and that is X items. So items is going to, by the knowledge, the way you are going to compose your diagram, class diagram of those entities, so that they are, whether if suppose I'm extending a product, so I know that the product class is already there. There is a Pojo product class, I have to use that one. If I'm doing a promotion, I'm extending a promotion, I have to use a promotion class, and then I have to create it. So start with the proper UML diagram. Then have your business services composition using communication diagram, and then have all those things, properly extended based on the way you put this whole component diagram and that's communication. So 3 critical things, what you should buy out of it. Takeaway is that ensure that you have a component diagram, ensure that you have a communication diagram, and communication is not different from a sequence diagram, so pretty much the same. I somehow prefer because it's a better representation than just a sequence diagram. But you can have both, whatever you're comfortable with. Then a class diagram. So this is the way you are going to see, okay, for my persistence tier, I have this, for my logic tier, I have this, and then you move on. Okay. So let's move forward. So for a persistence tier, I have a business requirement. I see the business impact. I create the new entity model. I create the class diagram of the entity model. And then I create all the items XML for core. And if it is a JPA, then I use a JPA compliant XML. If it is, JDBC, I do something, exactly, for these XML as well as these items XML to create those persistent models. Service tier. So we have, first 2 things remain the same. One is the business requirement. We have business process impact. We have new services model now. That as we saw that, we see that there is a, composition as well as, our communication and component model say that, I am adding something to the product class. I am adding something, my shipment is different. I just want to, my, a promotion is different. I go in a different way. So this is all about that. So make sure you have that, and then you construct a component diagram, and thereon from a communication diagram to identify all that differences to construct the, your configuration. And the presentation same way, is again, whatever you need to do. This example is more applicable to MVC, but if you have REST, then make sure your URLs are properly defined and all that, those kind of things. I'm just hurrying up a little bit because we are only left with 7 minutes. So we have now module extension, there's the same thing sitting on top of it. Now let's see a development view, so follow this practice, as I said, there is a core, there is a this, make your groups in the same way, so that when you develop it, you make different groups, and then everything is going into it. So here it's a version control, so I somehow love it. So everything is going into repository. When we go for the integration testing, if we put it on a queue server, we test and queue, and there is a bug tracker, I find it, there are some issues, go back in a cycle. No need to show that. For release management, we build, EAR or any relevant artifact. We create that and put it on a Hybris cluster. So from the development side of it, this is what, but follow those, that persistent what needs to be done, for a service what needs to be done, and we'll go from there. So this is our infrastructure view. We have a top client here, and then we have all the Apache servers. Then underneath we have a Hybris cluster commerce. Then we have all the order management, then warehouse management. So this is just a logical view. As we move forward, we will see that within our organization there are many things. But this will come very close to the way we see that how we can lay out our infrastructure. Okay, so not bad. We still have left 5 minutes. I actually wanted to finish a little bit earlier, maybe having 7 to 10 minutes, but there were many slides. So what we have learned is that what it is, what is a business problem, what is Hybris, and how can we use it. And so as I move forward by next webinars, I will probably take one module and show that how customization should happen, a runtime view web development. I think that would be very valuable. And with that, I really appreciate everyone's time and hope this was helpful. And Sean, back to you. If there are any questions, I can take up those questions.
Sure. Thanks, Ravi. That was indeed very informative. We have few questions. First of all, we have one from a customer asking you to touch upon reporting and analytics and how is it delivered?
As on the reporting side of it, within anything what we have, within the context of the Hybris. So there are reports which can be generated out of this model. So you can have just like within that, I am more fan of a big data, just Hadoop and all that. So this whole data should be constructed back into those flat structures, so that any of the report or any of the analytics, just like you must have seen there are some web-based analytics, they are different, but I think on this particular case, anyone who is asking this question is more interested into that, to see all the fraud cases, to see basically how the orders are doing, to see that what is the product performance is more like that. So this whole data, once it is there, the historical data can be moved into those flat structure, and so that's the way to do it. And within this also, there are many views which can be constructed, if we can use cockpits outside, there are a number of widgets, which can be used to show this data graphically. That's the way I will suggest these are a couple of ways to go for it. Next, please.
Sure. So what are the backend databases that can be used with Hybris?
What are the, sorry, Sean, I missed that part.
Backend databases that can be used along with Hybris?
You can use any database which is relational, as well as as we move forward on the non-persistent side of it, even now we have the ability to use even non-SQL databases too. So till the time you have a compliant relational database or a non-SQL, you should be good to go.
Sure, thanks. So any thoughts on deployment architecture options for Hybris? Is it part of this webinar, or is going to be part of our future webinar series?
As I showed one slide from the deployment side of it, because I mean, it's from when we see that from the Hybris perspective, those endpoints are there, within that, they have different options, whether you are going with a flat structure, if suppose your environment is a WebLogic, versus Tomcat versus WebSphere. So some knowledge of like how the a Oracle WebLogic domain works, how the clusters are created, so we are more into whether creating a ER versus having a flat structure, so that we move into that. It is very specific to each implementation you're going to do, and I can address that in the following seminar. Or just send me a question and it is specific to your environment is, and I can help you out.
Sure. Coming back to databases, what database do you recommend using your experience?
I have seen that Oracle being used, in I will say out of my 10 implementation I've seen at close to 7 to 8 places, but besides that, I have also seen Microsoft SQL Server being used as well, and it all depends, I think, from the perspective of rack and anything which is, if the data is critical, we have 24/7 operations, that is more. So as I said, I will be available offline too. So if there is specific, I can take that start. Next.
Sure. We'll take one more. What are the integration capabilities of Hybris?
Integration, as I said, that it is based on, Spring integration. This is what comes out of Spring. So if you are, looking at a Hybris, when you say Data Hub, Data Hub is purely built on a Spring integration framework. And then you can expose any of the services using REST. We say the SOA is already inbuilt in that part. And so I will say pretty much out of the box, these are the two things, which being given to you.
Sure. We have a few more, but we'll address them individually as we are running out of time. Thank you once again, everyone, for attending our webinar. And we look forward to seeing you on our next webinars as well. We'll be forwarding you the presentation copy of this webinar along with the thank you note by today evening. Thanks once again, and see you again. Thanks, Ravi.
I appreciate it, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Yeah.